Do you feel like there's something missing in your one-handed backhand? You might have watched my previous videos about how you're supposed to rotate and you got that, but there's just something not quite right. It just doesn't feel strong in certain positions and you can't put your finger on it. I felt the same way and I figured it out too. And this is one of the major things that helped me take my one-handed backhand to the next level, and I want to share it with you because I think it could be a huge game changer for you. So let's get started. So if you're wanting to know what this thing is, it's really about how we're supposed to swing the racket forward. And you're probably like, Kevin, I already know. Butt of the racket, butt pull, I'm gonna pull it here. But there's another distinction that makes it even more important. But before we get to that, I wanna take you through a really quick run through of what are the major stages for the one-handed backhand. So we're gonna start in a ready position here. And our very first thing we wanna do is get our body ready by turning my foot and getting my separation between my shoulders and my hips. This is really important. And then we're gonna get ready by taking our weight, sending it forward, and this is the position I want to start talking about. And there's a very small distinction I want to help you make that really made a difference for me. It's which muscles are you using to pull the racket forward? And this is so huge. And what I mean by this is that, yes, we do want to engage our hips to make sure we start this whole pull, but once we engage our hips, it goes up to our shoulders, and that's where the problem starts to show up. Some players, when they're swinging, what they do is they use their wrist. So as they're pulling with their hips, their wrist takes the racket forward. Now the problem with this is a weak muscle. This is a small muscle. So basically, we can only store and release a certain amount of force through this muscle. The next one would be what we either pronate or supinate. So meaning pronate this way and supinate this way, okay? So pronation, supination. Now, you might be saying, okay, well, I'm pulling the racket forward and I'm gonna pronate and pull the racket forward this way, just with this muscle here. It's a bigger muscle, so a lot of times, even when you do have a chance to hit the ball, if you pronate, you're probably doing decent. You're probably in the first camp where I was saying, hey, it feels good, but there's something still off. The next level, or what I think should be the level, is learning to have internal and external rotation, meaning that the difference between pronating, I'm just gonna grab my shoulder here, and I want you to grab your shoulder here for a second. If you grab your shoulder like this and you're one-handed backhand, if I pronate in and supinate out, you don't feel your shoulder move, okay? But if I internally rotate, meaning turn my shoulder this way, internal, you feel the back of my shoulder engage, and then external rotate, you feel the back of your shoulder push against my hand here. There's a pressure right here. So I want you to do a little exercise really quick and notice the difference. First, we're gonna do thumb, well, wrist, we don't want that, weak muscle. Pronation, supination, okay? And now we want internal rotation, external rotation, much bigger muscle. And this is the key to having a better backhand, is that when we're preparing here, we wanna make sure, instead of just taking the racket back, I can take the racket back here without having a lot of internal rotation in my shoulder, meaning that feeling that shoulder muscle engage internally. So if I take my racket back here and drop it here, this will help engage that internal rotation with my left hand pushing down, but a lot of times players are here dropping it and they don't feel a lot here. And so what I really want to do is make sure I have that feeling of pulling that internal rotation, and then as I engage my hips, send the racket forward using external rotation. And now you can see how the racket head gets to the ball. Yes, we're pulling here, and you can pull here and supinate, but what you really want to do is use those big muscles and use your external rotation muscles to pull it forward. Now this isn't just happening by itself. You want to engage your hips to now send the power to your shoulder, which now you get the release with the internal rotation, and this makes a huge difference. And I want to show you how it looks when you're hitting the tennis ball. And so I have the ball machine fire me a couple balls, and what I'm going to do is just go up in level, meaning that I'm going to use small muscles to hit the ball, then bigger muscles, and then finally use internal rotation and external rotation. The benefit of this is this: when the ball gets in more difficult spots, whether it be low or higher, it's gonna really help you. So right now I'm just gonna kind of use my wrist, and you'll see this. I call this fishtailing. So when the ball comes, players will do this. You can see how I'm still pulling the racket forward, and I can even use my body to do it, but I'm pulling the racket forward and I'm kind of popping it with my wrist, weak muscle. Now I'm gonna use my, I'm gonna supinate. So I'm gonna use my forearm a little bit more, and then you can see even there it's kind of off, but if I time it just right, it looks pretty good, you know? I'm catching it late, so I'll catch it a little earlier. Okay, that's not bad. So now I'm gonna use internal rotation. And so what happens now as I coil, you can really see as the ball even potentially gets higher, I can really engage these muscles a lot more. And you can see how now it's a lot smoother shot because I'm using bigger muscles like that. I'm using bigger muscles to step up and hit the ball. Up, miss it there. And so this is what you want to start thinking about when you're hitting your one-handed backhand, that you're using this muscle as you take it back, internally rotate, engage the hips, and externally rotate and taking the racket through, compared to using the wrist or even the forearm. And this will take your one-handed backhand to another level. Now, if you're lacking in the other parts of your one-handed backhand, like how to set up, how to use your hips, how to make sure you have contact in front, make sure you go watch this video because it'll take you through all the steps you need to know. Because you can't really use and get the most benefit out of doing this if you can't get everything else in the right position and the right sequence for the right time. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave me a comment below and take care, and I'll see you again.